Good morning, first grade. Let's start off with a happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. So glad to be back with you today on the carpet as we start our morning. We're going to jump right into chapter 2 of the Boxcar Children beginning. Remember, if you got a little bit behind on your lessons, you can go back and you can look at yesterday's Boxcar Children beginning chapter 1 if you need a little review. We're going to start right off with our first slide on the smartboard. Here we go. Boxcar, and more boxcar. Just show me the boxcar. Then we're going to move right into our continents poem. The continents, let's rock it. Continents, do you know your continents? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia. Don't forget Australia. Don't forget Antarctica. Continents, do you know your continents? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Arthur, do you know your continents? Unknown. I forgot to remind you that I needed to hear you with me. As I was reading, I needed you to be at home reading that smartboard slide with me. Remember, this is when in first grade we do a lot of work on our fluency and improving those reading skills. Not going to do the clip today. We did that yesterday, and so if you'd like to watch that little clip again, you can go back to Monday's lesson. We're going to roll right into our second continent song, which we haven't done this one as much, but we have done this one several times. Continents lyrics, here we go. Continents, do you know your continents? North, south, east, and west, all around the world. Asia, Africa, North and South America, Australia, Antarctica, and Europe too. Arthur, unknown. Now let's go ahead and a little review. Let's name our continents. Remember, we have 7 continents. Let's rock these together. North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, Antarctica. And let's try those without the words written in. Again, North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia. Excuse me, Miss Sheppard Fruit Loop. Let's hit it again. North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia 6, and Antarctica number 7. This is a map of the United States of America. Remember, we have 50 states in the United States of America. This is our country, and remember the name of our state is North Carolina, and this is where we see North Carolina on the map. And we have a lot going on in our country today, so this gives you what the whole United States of America looks like. Now, in Monday's lesson, I started off by talking to you a little bit about the Boxcar Children, which was written by Gertrude Chandler Warner. The Boxcar Children was written in 1942. Gertrude Chandler Warner, remember I told you, was a 4th grade teacher. She wanted chapter books that were easy for her children to understand. She had a hard time finding good chapter books for her children to read in her classroom, so she decided she was going to write a chapter book, and it was called The Boxcar Children. It's the first book in the Boxcar Children series, and remember, the first book tells us how everything got started. After Gertrude Chandler Warner published the Boxcar Children in 1942, her book was such a hit that her readers asked for more. So she wrote a whole series of books, but the Boxcar Children tells how the whole series got started. I showed you yesterday, these are some photos of Gertrude Chandler Warner, and this is a photo of her. Actually, it looks like probably with her class at school. I also showed you yesterday a photo. This is what a real boxcar would look like. You can tell that it's a part of a train. Now, remember yesterday in the Boxcar Children Lesson 1, I told you the first book in the Boxcar Children series was about Henry, Jesse, Violet, and Benny are 4 homeless orphans. Homeless means they do not have a home. Orphans means they don't have parents to live with. They have no parents and no place to call home. They find an old boxcar in the woods and turn it into a home. And remember, this book was published in 1942, and many people who read the Boxcar Children wondered as readers why Henry, Jesse, Violet, and Benny were homeless orphans. So, in 2012, Patricia McLaughlin wrote the prequel to the Boxcar Children, and that's the book I started with you yesterday, and it's called The Boxcar Children Beginning. And this book, read the prequel, The Boxcar Children Beginning, to see how all of this got started. And the prequel was published in 2012. Remember, a sequel tells us how a book would continue. A prequel tells us what happens before the first book in the Boxcar Children series. So we're going to jump right into chapter 2 of the Boxcar Children Beginning. Remember the title, The Boxcar Children Beginning, The Aldens of Fairmeadow Farm. This is one of those times you can jump in and be reading with me. Author, Patricia McLaughlin. Illustrator, Robert Dunn. Genre, realistic fiction. Author's purpose, to entertain. Book jacket designer, Tim Giselle. Copyright date, 2012. And this is the prequel to the Boxcar Children series and the Boxcar Children mysteries. I'm going to let you hear those little sound clips. I'm going to start with
cow.
Cow. Then I'm going to let you listen. Again.
Cow.
Now I have a new poem for us today. This poem is actually going to be in your packet for next week. That will be one of your shared readings, because the Boxcar Children Beginning takes place on a farm. This poem is written by Betsy Franco, and it is a poem about a class that went to a farm, and it's called Farm Visit by Betsy Franco. Listening to me read first, or you can actually be reading along with me. My class went to a farm one day. We touched the soft brown cow. We saw where all the milk came from. I understand it now. We stroked a chicken's feathers, and we touched a muddy pig. Her hairs were like a bristly brush. Her eyes weren't very big. We watched the goats butt heads and put their hooves up on the wall. A little baby lamb was with her mama in a stall. We ate some carrots from the ground, a fresh and healthy snack. That farm was really neat. I hope my class and I go back. That was just an introduction to that poem I wanted to share with you today. That will be in your shared reading packet for next week. Now, we did this one yesterday. We did the summarizing hokey pokey. Remember, as we're reading the Boxcar Children Beginning, one of the things we're going to be working on as readers is summarizing. And as readers, when we summarize, we tell what the chapter or what the book or what the passage was mostly about. This goes to the tune of the Hokey Pokey, and it's called the Summarizing Hokey Pokey. Here we go. You should be able to read with me today. Eyes on the smart board, wide eyes, big ears. This will also be in your shared reading packet for next week that you'll be able to illustrate. Here we go. Summarizing Hokey Pokey. You put the big ideas in, you take the extras out, you put the essentials in, and you cross the repeats out. You do some summarizing and write the paragraph now. That's what it's all about, summarizing. Now we're going to go right into a review from yesterday. We read chapter 1, or you listened to chapter 1, and chapter 1 you did not hear Ms. Sheppard reading. That was a voice, a recorded voice that I shared with you for chapter 1. But in chapter 2, we're going to move into Ms. Sheppard reading, just like I would read a chapter to you on the carpet if you were here with me in class. Title of chapter 1 was Good Times. Remember, our title gives us clues about the main idea or what the chapter would be mostly about. I asked you yesterday as you were watching to give me your prediction for chapter 1. We do this in reading groups a lot. When we write in our notebook, when we write, I predict, and you tell me as a reader what you think that chapter is going to be about. Now, we summarized chapter 1 yesterday, and that goes along with our summarizing Hokey Pokey. When we give a summary, we tell the most important things that happen in the chapter. I need you reading with me as I read the summary of chapter 1. If we were here at school on the carpet, you would be reading with me. So I want you reading with me from home. Papa, Mama, Henry, Jesse, Violet, and Benny have just had a spring snow in March at Fair Meadow Farm. As Jesse and Henry plan the barn hideaway, Papa warns them that hard times are coming. Now, we didn't do this chunk yesterday. We do this in reading groups, so you know that AT1 stands for another title for chapter 1. Another title, you always do a good job on this. Another title means we look at the title the author, Patricia McLaughlin, gave chapter 1, and we come up with another good title that tells what the chapter was mostly about. And another title for chapter 1 that my class came up with last year was Spring Snow, because in chapter 1, they had just, at Fair Meadow Farm, they had just had a spring snow. Now, if you were with me in class, I would be asking you to tell me the big things that happen in chapter 1 of the Boxcar Children beginning. And these would be the key ideas. Since you're not here with me, I'm going to be sharing them with you. And this would be a good review of the big things that happen in chapter 1. Let's start with bullet 1. There had been a spring snow in March at Fair Meadow Farm. I know there was a spring snow. It was March. And Fair Meadow Farm, those all tell me about the setting of chapter 1. Remember, the setting tells when and where the chapter takes place. Bullet 2, Papa, Mama, Henry, Jesse, Violet, Benny, Betty, who was a cow, and Boots, who was a cow, lived on Fair Meadow Farm. Bullet 2 gives me a lot of information about my characters. My characters tell me who the chapter was about. And in a chapter book, in the first chapter, we lots of times get an introduction to our main characters. And then as we move through the book or the story, sometimes we meet new characters as the story continues. Bullet 3, Jessie was making a list. Now I told you in parentheses, a character trait to describe Jessie is organized. An organized person is a person that likes to have things in order. Jessie is going to be a very, very organized character. She's making a list. She likes to have things in order. We talked about character traits on the carpet and in reading groups. Bullet 4, Jessie and Henry talked about the barn hideaway they were planning to make in the loft in the barn. Bullet 5, Papa returned from town and told Jessie and Henry that people were losing their jobs and houses and having to move. He explained they were having hard times. And yesterday, I shared with you that I was able to make, as a reader, a text-to-self connection, because right now in our city, in our country, in our state, right now we have a lot of people who are losing their jobs. They may be losing their houses, and a lot of people would say right now that they are experiencing hard times. Next bullet, Papa still had his job. Mama still had her job baking at the market. Papa warned that they would see hard times soon. And then the last bullet, the family played in the spring snow. So the good thing in chapter 1 is, even though there are hard times for some people, Papa still has his job. Mama still has her job. Now, the author, Patricia McLaughlin, didn't tell us what Papa's job was, but the author told us that Mama's job was she did baking, and she sold her goods that she baked at the market. So Mama and Papa are very lucky because they still have their jobs, but many people around them are losing their jobs or have already lost their jobs. Now, that was a good review of the key ideas from chapter 1. And now we're ready to move right into chapter 2. And as we move into chapter 2, notice, just like in reading groups, we'll start with our T2, which is hard times, and our P2, which you would, if we were in groups, you would be writing in your notebook your title for chapter 2, T2, and then your prediction for chapter 2. In chapter 2 of a chapter book, when we make our prediction as readers, we do a lot of thinking about what just happened in chapter 1. So right now at home, I want you to make your prediction for chapter 2. And then I'm going to be ready to jump right into reading chapter 2. If you'll give me just a second, I'm going to shift my camera so that it's facing my rocking chair instead of my smartboard, because if you were here with me at school today, I would be reading to you from my rocking chair. And do you see the birthday bear and Hot Potato Fred are waiting for me to pick up that Boxcar Children beginning book and beginning reading chapter 2. And I hope that that old Hot Potato Fred doesn't decide to jump out of my chair like he does sometimes when we're sitting on the carpet. Here we go, the Boxcar Children, beginning chapter 2. I want to go back to the end of chapter 1 when it said, as it turned out, something would happen. Something not at all peaceful. Something Jesse and Henry could never have imagined. It would happen the very next day. As chapter 1 ended, Patricia McLaughlin let us know that something was getting ready to happen to change things. And we know as readers, when an author tells us something's getting ready to happen, but they don't tell us right what it is, that's a beautiful example of foreshadowing. So I love the way Patricia McLaughlin ended chapter 1 with foreshadowing, and I think right there she wants us to make a prediction about what's getting ready to happen in chapter 2. I need wide eyes and big ears. Chapter 2, hard times. Papa had been right about snow. It was still winter. It had snowed all night and was still snowing. There was no sun. That first paragraph is describing the setting. I would call that, or I would ask you to tell me what we call that as readers, and that's where you would tell me that's a vivid setting, describing what it looks like and what it feels like outside. You were right, Jesse told Papa. Right about winter. I'm right about a lot of things, said Papa, making Mama laugh. No school for sure, said Mama. No one on the roads either, said Papa. Can't take bakery goods to market. That means a day off, Mama said happily. Violet stirred oatmeal on the big stove. Now, right now as a reader, I can make a text-to-self connection because for the characters in the book, because they had a snow, there will be no school that day. Just like at Walton Academy, when we have snow outside, lots of times we have what's called a snow day and school is canceled. When I grow up, I'm going to be a baker like Mama, she said. You can be anything, said Mama. Anything at all. That's a beautiful lesson in life. When you boys and girls grow up, you can be anything at all. Cow, said Benny, making everyone laugh. I don't think Violet will be a cow, said Mama. Character trait to describe Benny. He likes to make everybody laugh. Character trait for Benny would be humorous. Henry put on his boots and coat and hat and went to the barn for chores. He put down new bedding in Betty's stall. Remember, Betty's one of our cows. Boots was still outside, but Betty liked the barn in winter. Henry could see his own breath in the air. He could see Betty's breath too. When you can see your breath, it's when it's really cold outside and your warm mouth, when you breathe, it makes a little cloud. Henry, Jessie called from outside. She carried a pail of water for the cows. The wind took her hat and her long hair blew around her face. Henry ran down the hill and caught her hat, then followed her to the barn. I'm tired of winter, said Jessie. Henry put her wool hat on her head. Remember how we loved the first snow? He asked. I'll love this snow if it's the last one, said Jessie. She carried the water into Betty's stall. She leaned against Betty. How can Betty be so warm? She asked. I noticed that word warm is written in italics. The author wants us to read that with more emphasis. Henry leaned against Betty's other side. Betty rubbed her head against him. "Get ready," said Henry. They laughed. They knew Betty would moo in a minute. Papa came into the barn carrying a second pail of water. That was when, you guessed it, Betty mooed. The sound filled the barn. "Hello, Miss Betty," said Papa. He went to the grain barrel and poured a scoopful of grain into Betty's bin. Boots came into the barn, snow-covered, her hooves clattering on the old wooden floors. Papa scooped her some grain too and brushed snow off her. Papa looked at the paper nailed to the wall. "This must be a Jessie list," he said. "Where is this barn hideaway?" Remember in chapter 1, Organized Jessie was making a list. One on the list was barn hideaway. Before Jessie could answer, Papa lifted his head. "What's that?" "Sounded like a car," said Henry. "A car? No one can drive in these snowdrifts," said Papa. He went to the barn door and looked out. "Help! Help me! Please!" It was a man's voice calling. So when Papa listens, he hears a man's voice calling out, "Help! Help!" I wonder who it is. A car was stuck in the driveway snowdrift. The man was carrying a child. Papa started running to the car. "Henry, come with me. Jessie, tell Mama we'll need blankets." Jessie ran to the house, sliding in the snow. She opened the door, pushing it shut against the wind. "Mama, people coming. We need blankets." Mama turned from the stove and didn't stop to ask questions. She hurried to the bedroom and came out with blankets and bed covers. Wonder why they need blankets and bed covers. The door opened and there was a boy and a girl. The girl carried by her father. Their mother looked frightened. Now, she looked frightened. Frightened would be a character feeling stated in the text. In her arms was a small dog. Mama took the mother's arm and pulled her to the wood stove in the kitchen. The dog jumped down. "Is he all right here?" the woman asked Mama. "Of course," said Mama. Now the woman was asking, is it okay that we brought our dog into the house? And Mama says, of course. She pulled a chair close to the stove. "Here, bring the child here." "She's so cold," said the woman. "Our car started to break down," said the man. "No heater. I've been looking for a house. So problem is their car started to break down. There was no heater, so they were looking for a house, I'm inferring, so that they could get warm." Mama smiled at them. "You found one. I'll make some tea. Jessie, can you make hot chocolate for the children? Violet, get the cups, please, and a bowl of water for the dog." "The dog is Joe," said the woman. "He won't be any trouble." Violet pulled a chair over to the counter and climbed up to get cups. "Thank you," said the man. "I'm Jake Clark. This is my wife, Sarah. We lost our home and we were on our way to my sister's in New Hampshire. But the car, ... ellipsis. I think the ellipsis is there because he didn't finish his sentence. Jake Clark couldn't talk anymore. He was too upset. "I'm Kate Alden," said Mama. "You met my husband Ben and son Henry. I think they're tending to your car. This is Jessie, Violet, and Benny." Benny went over to sit next to Joe, who was drinking water. In a moment, Joe finished and looked at Benny. "You're a beautiful dog," said Benny softly, patting Joe. "The most beautiful dog in the whole world." Joe climbed up on Benny's lap, making Benny grin. We can tell already that Benny loves the dog, Joe. Sarah smiled at Benny. Then she spoke softly to Mama. "I don't know what is going to happen to us," she whispered. Mama poured tea and hot chocolate. "You will stay with us," she said with a smile. "We'll make room for you until your car can be fixed." The children, "What are your names?" "I'm Meg," said the girl. "William," said the boy. "Well, Meg and William, you can share a room with Benny, Violet, Jessie, and Henry. We can bring blankets." I'm going to self-correct. That didn't look right, and as a reader, when it doesn't look right, I need to go back and self-correct. "We can hang blankets up on clotheslines," said Jessie excitedly. "Boys on one side, girls on the other." Jessie's already organizing, so the girls are on one side and the boys are on the other. "And Joe," said Benny. "And Joe," said Jessie. "That's a good idea, Jessie," said Mama. Jessie is our organizer. Meg, as cold as she was, smiled. "You can go to school with us, and you can help us with chores. We have cows to feed and stalls to clean. It will be fine," said Jessie. "We'll have fun, Mr. and Mrs. Clark. You'll see." Jake Clark smiled. "I think you should call us Jake and Sarah," he said, "since we're going to be family for a while." So we've met actually 5 new characters. We've met Jake, the man, Sarah, the woman, William, the little boy, Meg, the little girl, and Joe, the dog. "Our family will be bigger than it was," said Mama, reaching over and taking Sarah's hand. "Just a little bigger," Mama said softly. When Henry came in with Papa after chores, he looked at Jessie, and they knew, I'm going to self-correct, I skipped a word, and they both knew that Papa had been right about things other than snow. They would see hard times. "So this is how hard times look," whispered Jessie to Henry. "And something has happened to add to your list," said Henry. Jessie put her hand in her pocket and felt the paper list. "Yes, it has happened," she said. "It has. The Clarks have come from far away in the middle of a storm." "In the middle of hard times," said Henry. "Nowhere for them to go, no home." "Except Fair Meadow Farm," said Jessie. She smiled at Henry. "Our home." Now remember, Papa had told them in chapter 1 that hard times were coming. And now they have seen as the Clarks were traveling in their car and their car broke down, we have seen that hard times are actually here. Now, as we are thinking about the big things that happen in chapter 2, we're going to go ahead and do our summary. This is going to be our S2. And as readers, when we summarize, we tell what the chapter is mostly about. And our S2, I want you to read with me. If you were here with me on the carpet, this is where we would be reading together. So read with me from home. To begin with, the Aldens saw the big spring snowstorm at Fairmeadow Farm. In addition, the Clarks were traveling to their new home in New Hampshire. Without warning, their car broke down in the middle of the snowstorm. So the Aldens invited the Clarks to live with them. Jesse and Henry realized hard times were here. So we know in chapter 2 there was a snowstorm. The Clarks were traveling to their new home and their car broke down, which would be a big problem. In the middle of the snowstorm, the Aldens invited the Clarks to live with them. And Jesse and Henry realized that hard times were here. The hard times that Papa had talked about in chapter 1. Now we're going to do one more thing and then we're going to stop. This is going to be a good stopping point for the Boxcar children beginning today. Let's go ahead and do our AT2. Remember, our AT2 is another good title for chapter 2. And another good title for chapter 2 is the Clarks. Patricia McLaughlin gave chapter 2 the title Hard Times, but another good title would be the Clarks, because chapter 2 was mostly about the Clarks. Now, as we wrap up today, thank you for being such good listeners. I know you were doing a good job of listening and looking at the Smartboard slides as I was teaching my Boxcar children beginning chapter 2 lesson and reading chapter 2 with you on the carpet. So this is a good stopping point today, and your only job, you don't need to write anything down for this lesson. Your only job was to be a good listener and a good participator. And we're going to stop here for today, and tomorrow we will review chapter 2 and we'll be ready to blast off into chapter 3. I miss you so much. I love our carpet time. It's one of my favorite times of the day. I hope you're enjoying your time at home with your family, but I can't wait until we're able to be back together in our classroom at Walton Academy. School is a little bit different when you're not here with me in the classroom. So I hope you have a good day. This is a good chance for you to take a break before you move on to some of your other lessons. That wraps up chapter 2.